Potage Saint-Germain with julienne of prosciutto and golden crouton. A beautiful soup with lots of flavors. Potage Saint-Germain refers to a soup made with split peas. In French culinary art, every dish called Saint-Germain is always made with peas. So, for your reference, if one day you find another recipe called Saint-Germain, you will know it's made of peas. To make the soup, we will need split peas. The peas, I have soaked them in cold water overnight and I kept them in the fridge and they have doubled in size. That allowed the peas to make them more tender and we will save the cooking time. Cream, sour cream, prosciutto ham, smoked bacon, sandwich bread slices, and chicken stock. So we're going to cut the onion in half. I'm going to remove the core. There we go. Because I want to have, I'm going to chop the onions quickly. It doesn't have to be super fine. It doesn't have to be in paysanne or in a mirepoix. It has to be just sliced because the soup will be processed at the end. So it doesn't really matter. Okay. So we're going to cut, make kind of sizzly. And then position your finger very well, fingertips away from the blade. And then here, cut it up, okay? So same thing for the other half here. Great. Let's put that in the bowl. For the soup, slice the bacon. Cut the bacon into little matchsticks. When the bacons get wilder, just cut it in half to have something consistent in terms of size. This cut, it's called lardon. Let's melt the butter. Okay. Let's add the onions. So now we are going to cook the onions on medium heat into the butter for about 2 minutes. But in any case, we won't color the onions. While the onion is cooking, we are going to clean the leek. So run the tap with cold water. Make sure there is no soil. So the onions are cooking slowly. They start to become translucent a little bit because they are melting down. So now I'm going to add the bacon. Great. And we are going to cook the bacon and the onions for another couple minutes on medium heat and without browning the food. So let's slice the leek. Finely, so Position your finger very well. Great. And we're going to add the leeks to the soup. Let's add the leek to the onion mixture. Great. We're going to let it sweat together. To sweat is the action to cook food in a small amount of fat in order to melt it down without browning the food. To sweat. This is an important culinary term, to sweat. Excellent. So now I'm going to turn down the heat here to low, and because we're going to be cleaning the butter lettuce. To clean the butter lettuce, look at the leaves. If there's any black spot or any leaves that are damaged, just trim it off. There we go. Great. Excellent. Maybe a little bit here too. Good. Now we are going to cut the core off. Great. And we're going to wash it into the sink. So here, let's cut that up. Cut in half. Excellent. So make sure you wash well the leaves. Make sure that all the dirt or any bugs, if it's an organic lettuce, goes away, if any. Great. And make sure also your water is very cold. Great. So let's grab a colander. Right. Let's slice the salad. We're just going to slice it roughly. That will melt down. So there we go. If you don't find a butter lettuce at the market, you could use any other green lettuce, okay? As long as it is not a frisée or a curly endive, as long as it is not a salad that will be bitter, you may use any lettuce. Great. So that looks a lot of salad, but it would actually melt down to almost nothing. Let's add it to the pot. So here, the salad is going to melt. Just have increased the heat to medium heat. Again, because it was on low for while the time I was washing the salad. So let's drain the peas. We are on medium heat. All the vegetables and the lettuce have melted down. So now it's time to add the peas. Add the chicken stock. Great. So give it a good stir. Give it a good stir and then increase the heat to high in order to bring it to a boil more rapidly. So let's chop the garlic. So I remove the gem of the garlic in all the cloves. So I'm just slicing the garlic. Great. Garlic is added. We are going to cook the soup now. It's almost boiling. So the soup is simmering now. It smells wonderful. All the flavors start to combine and to get released. So now we are going to let it simmer on medium heat for about 40 minutes or until the peas are totally tender. So we are going to remove the crust of the bread first, all around. There we go. Great. Perfect. Let's put that over. Let's cook it. Heat the pan. So medium high to start. And we are going to heat the clarified butter. About 2 tablespoons to start. I don't put everything. I might add a little bit more after because the croutons are going to soak all the fat. So you don't want to have too much either. But you need a little bit in order to have the croutons well toasted with the clarified butter. So heat the pan. To know if the fat is hot enough, you put your hand on the top and you should feel the heat a little bit, okay? Also, when you move the pan like this and you see the fats going from one side to the pan to the other side, if it goes very fast, it will tell you that the fat is hot, okay? Great. So just a little more heat. What is good with this recipe is we are going to practice to sauté. Sauté means to make the food jumping in the air in order to flip it. We won't go too high. You don't need to sauté that high. What you want is just to have the food to go around and to get moved. Thus each side of the food get presented to the pan in order to cook. So here my fat is hot, my clarified butter is hot. Now I'm going to add the croutons. Now I'm going to sauté. There we go. So the key when you sauté is, I notice that with my students when I do my private cooking classes or public cooking classes, is that students handicap themselves because when they sauté, they have the tendency to place the pan that way, going up. So the food slides down this way, and then it goes against the direction they want to go. So rather than if you put your pan down, already the food slides to the edge of the pan, and then it's easier to bring it up. If really, when you are sauté the food and you put it everywhere, well, it's because first of all you put too much power, and also you may consider using a spatula. but practice is the key in order to learn how to saute food in a pan. Great. So now we're going to let it cook a little bit until the croutons start to get golden brown, and then we're going to cook it, to flip it again. You can actually see which part of the bread has been soaked with the butter. So you see it's a bit darker here, clear here. No butter, 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 no butter. You could see where the butter went. So after you could decide if you want to put a little bit more or not. Okay, so the bread start to color. We could clearly see that. I'm going to add another teaspoon of clarified butter. So when the croutons are almost ready, what happens is that they will give you back a little bit of the fat, and you could see the pan start to get a little bit greasy. There's a little pearl of fat around. So here I'm using clarified butter because it cooks on a very high heat without burning, but you may use other fat such as vegetable oil or olive oil. The thing is, it won't taste the same. It will be a little more bland and oily, rather than the clarified butter has this beautiful touch and flavor to the crouton, which is what we want here. Great, so that's done. We are going to season it now. So let's turn it off, and I'm going to remove the pan from the heat, and now we are going to season. So pinch of salt and freshly ground peppercorns. So the croutons are ready now. We are going to place them on a piece of paper towel in order for the paper to absorb any excess of butter, if any. So it's time now for us to cut the ham into a thin julienne. Great. Perfect. So we are ready. So now it's going to be time for us to check if the peas are cooked, because the soup's been cooking for about 40 minutes now. Let's have a look. Now we are going to use a hand blender in order to process the soup. You may use a regular blender, but there is big chances you will get burned because the food will go high and it might splash, and it's not very safe. If you use a blender, be very, very cautious. Do not fill the blender, maybe a third of the jar, and that's it. And do little batches at a time. If you have a hand blender, use it, because that's the safest tool to use in order to process that soup. So pass the blender around. On the maximum speed. So process the soup until it's totally fine and no more little bites. Great. So I'm going to strain. There we go. Now with a whisk, I'm going to push through the soup through the sieve. Great. So I need to clean that up. I'm going to get the blender and we're going to add it into the jar. So just like that, let it drop. Good. And let's finish the rest here. Smells wonderful. We could smell the smoked bacon, the peas, the stock, garlic a little bit. It's nice. So this soup is actually, it's quite economical, it's not expensive to make. And you will see the consistency of the soup comes from the starch of the peas, as the peas are quite starchy. So this is what thickens the soup, really. The natural starch of the peas. Great, I'm going to add this into the rest also. There we go. Now I'm going to add a little bit of the strained soup into the blender here. Just to have a little bit of liquid. And we are going to puree that. So let's get the blender up. Great. And now protect yourself with a rag. Fold it in 4. Place it over the blender. Open it a little bit to have the steam released, and immediately after that process on the lowest speed. Then when it's turning, you may increase to a higher speed. Good. So let's have a look again. So with my spoon, we could see the consistency now. It's much better. Beautiful. So now we are going to add this to the soup, because otherwise the soup will be too liquidy, you see. Put it back together. Great. Beautiful. So now we have to boil the soup and add the soup. It's reheating again. So now we are going to add the cream. Perfect. Nice consistency. What is funny with pea soup is that, you know, right now the consistency is great. But when you eat the soup, you will see that as it cools down, it will get thicker and thicker. And when the soup will be totally cold, if you don't eat everything tonight, if you let it cool overnight in your fridge, the day after, it will be very thick and very hard. So you will have to, in order to reheat it, the best way will be to place it in the microwave to heat it up, just to melt it, and then put it in a pot with a little bit of water on the bottom and bring it to a boil and keep an eye on it. So it is very easy to burn a pea soup when you reheat it. Taste and rectify the seasoning of the soup if necessary. Very nice. Tiny bit more salt and pepper. So salt, and pepper. Great. So it is important to bring the soup to a boil in order to cook the cream. So the soup is simmering now, so let's plate it. So mix the soup before serving it because you don't want to have any foam on the top. It has to be well combined. Great. Great consistency, perfect. Very nice. If your soup is too thick, you may add a little bit of chicken stock. If you find your soup very liquidy, just simmer it a little bit longer and it will reduce a little bit. Perfect. Then we're going to add the sour cream. So I just mix up the sour cream to make it smooth. Okay. Just a little bit. Great. I'm going to put some croutons around. And a little bit of ham on the top. And finally, just a little bit of parsley, just on the side. You may put a little bit of some sour cream here and there. Just for the color. Potage Saint-Germain with julienne of prosciutto and golden crouton. Bon appétit!